Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fired up to be with you today here on Locked On Bearcats. Alex Frank here, your host each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online, as you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's episode of Locked On Bearcats is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, so let's get to today's show. And I've been reading all of your comments on YouTube. Thank you so much for those. And I really feel like there's two different roads here that we can go with Scott Satterfield. And, there's those of you who are skeptical. There's those of you who are, optimistic. I'm on I'm on the latter. I'm optimistic about Scott Satterfield. I really am. But let's start with the skepticism. We'll start with those who are skeptical, those who are out, those who are, calling him names I can't say on this show. Excuse me. But what I can tell you is you're skeptical because of the fact that he hasn't really won anything significant at the D1 level. He, turned Louisville around. He took Appalachian State from FCS to FBS. There's a lot of good things that he has done in his career, but he hasn't taken a Power 5 program yet to a conference championship. He hasn't coached in a lot of high-profile games. That does concern you, and that's rightfully so. The Bearcats are just over a year removed from the college football playoff. This is a program that in some fans' eyes should be still considered a top 10 program. But remember, that's not the case. The Bearcats aren't established like Ohio State and Notre Dame and Georgia and Alabama. They had a great 5-year run under Luke Fickell. So if you're out on Scott Satterfield because his recruits maybe didn't pan out the way they thought, the way Louisville fans thought, if you're skeptical because he hasn't coached in a lot of big games, if you're skeptical because outside of a great first season, you can ask yourself, what did he really accomplish? That's totally understandable. What I'm here to tell you is it is okay to feel skepticism. It's rightfully so because he's taking, and you probably aren't going to admit this, but I'm going to guess that you are probably apprehensive and maybe a little, excuse me, what's the word I'm looking for? I think I might have already used it. You are just nervous about the territory. Excuse me, sorry, I didn't mute my mic there. You are just a little, apprehensive about the next head coach taking over for Luke Fickell. And that's understandable. This is unfamiliar territory. See, here's something else we like in Cincinnati. We like comfortable. We like familiar. We like things to, I don't know if stay the status quo, but we don't like a lot of change. We compare Reds teams to the Big Red Machine. Before Joe Burrow came along, we were comfortable with just going to the playoffs as Bengal fans. Yes, we wanted them to win, but we also like the fact that, hey, at least they're relevant. With Cincinnati, we got used to Luke Fickell. We got used to, okay, we're going to always be in contention for a conference championship. Okay, we're going to make a New Year's Six Bowl. We might go further than that, but at least we're going to be relevant. You don't know what it's going to be like with Scott Satterfield. If you're scared of the unknown, if you're scared of the unfamiliar territory, if you're scared about, change, that's okay. If you're scared about, I think a lot of us maybe weren't scared when John Brandon took over for Mick Cronin, but after what happened, it made me realize, you know what? Those 13 years were good because the Bearcats were always relevant. Top 25 tournament perennials. They haven't been in the tournament since Mick Cronin left. And if you're Bearcats football, it might be 3 years or so before the Bearcats go back to a near six. Well, if you're scared about that, that's fine. Because once you go somewhere and get comfortable to it, you want to stay there. I think, and my mom would tell me this, and she would tell you this. That's natural for people to feel. Once you get somewhere and once you get familiar with it, you want to stay there. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. That's not how life works. You struggle with that. I struggle with it too. Gotta deal with it. Therefore, coming up, I'm going to put an optimistic spin on Scott Satterfield. Thanks to one of your comments. I'll get into that after I explain how this episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by the legendary revolutionizing Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all of the fat and the calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. In fact, it's to eat more trees and plants than stuff from manufacturing plant. Thank you, John Gordon, for that tip. If you're like me where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, I've got just the thing for you. You gotta try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious. You won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes them taste so good? What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they are all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, and they come in unbelievably good flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around and get a box for years. We've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie, batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Built.com. All right, thanks again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. Make sure to check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Back here on Locked On Bearcats, Alex Frank with you. So, there's one comment I saw recently that said that they're excited because Scott Satterfield's bringing 7 assistants with him from Louisville. And because of what Louisville did to Cincinnati in the Fenway Bowl, they like what they saw. So therefore, they're optimistic. I agree with that. Because you have, again, we talk about familiarity. You've got Scott Satterfield. And this, I think, happens with any coaching change. But you've got 7 assistants coming. And we saw what Louisville did to Cincinnati with them rushing for nearly 300 yards. I think there's reason for high optimism because of that. You know, Brian Brown, defensive coordinator. I think I'm blanking here. What I'm saying is Josh Stepp, who was the offensive coordinator in the Fenway Bowl for the Bearcat for Louisville. Greg Gasparotto, coached last year at Louisville. I think there is plenty of reason. I mean, Gasparotto was the outside linebackers coach for a Louisville team that had the most sacks in the country. That should mean something for a Bearcats defense that now without Ivan Pace and without Noah Potter, they're going to need a pass rush. They're going to need guys who can play linebacker. We don't know what's going to happen yet with Deshaun Pace and Jaheim Thomas. So you need coaches who are familiar with Scott Satterfield and what he wants to do defensively. Brian Brown can help with that. Greg Gasparotto can help with that. So if this were a matter of a head coach who did not have a great record, let's be honest, and he brought his assistants with him, and let's say that was the situation. If Scott Satterfield last year went 3-9 and brought 7 assists, then you'd probably be skeptical. But because Louisville had a winning record, I mean, they were 5-2 down the stretch, and their only losses, one of them was to Clemson. I was at that game. That game was a much closer game than maybe some expected. But we also look at, so Louisville last year started 2-3. Their only other loss was to Kentucky. They beat NC State, who was a top 25 team. They played number 10 Clemson hard. They beat Wake Forest, a Wake Forest team with Sam Hartman that had high expectations coming into this season. They beat Pitt. They blew out Virginia, right? They went on the road and beat UCF. So they won against a Big 12 team. They played 13th ranked Louisville tough. Looking at Louisville's schedule, yes, it doesn't stand out to you, but what it does is it makes you understand this is a good hire. Like Scott Satterfield, what he did in his first season and what he was able to do last year after a 2-3 start, that shows that this guy is willing to not only rebuild, but he's willing to, when things are going against him, he's willing to fight, and that is something I want to see with Scott Satterfield. I think you will see that. And the fact that he's bringing assistants with him that know him is going to be instrumental to that first season. Because let's be honest, the first season might be rough. You know, you're entering a new new conference. You're entering a new new expectations. It's a whole new ball game in the Big 12. So having some sort of familiarity there does help. All right. So the Bearcats had their biggest game of the season on the hardwood over the weekend. It did not turn out the way we wanted, but I think there are some positives to take away from that game. We'll get into them after I tell you how this episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post company and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. When I was with Bearcast, this is how we hired all of our staff members. We posted who we were looking for, what we were looking for, made it easy to hire a great staff. We had big goals then. We've got big goals in 2023, and it's so important to find that right team member, that positive, outgoing person. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. In addition, today's episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup that just ended a few weeks ago. We've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so the Bearcats on Sunday fell to Houston 72-59. I do think that if you had asked me, or if I had asked you, or if you had asked a fellow Bearcats fan, if that was going to be the final score of this game against the now number one team in the country, you probably would have taken it. I do. Yes, the Bearcats struggled in this game. Yes, there are some frustrating things, but they played. It was a 7-point game at the half. It was a 10-point game with just a few minutes to play. And the Bearcats were in this game despite David DeJulius only scoring 6 points. I guarantee you that's not going to always be the case. Now, we do need him to step up in big games. He did not against Arizona or NKU. He did against Xavier in a very hard-fought, valiant effort. Unfortunately, ended up on the wrong side. But David DeJulius is going to have to start to step it up in big games, and I think he will after a game like this. He turned the ball over 4 times. That's not going to cut it against Houston. But the Bearcats won this game despite Viktor Lakhin being held in check mightily in the first half. He only had 6 rebounds. The leading rebounder for the Bearcats was Viktor Lakhin and Jeremiah Davenport. Davenport only had 2 points on 1 of 9 shooting. That's not going to cut it. 0 for 7 from 3. If Jeremiah Davenport hits 4 of those, the Bearcats are in that game. It's a single-digit game. So, if you're the Cincinnati Bearcats, I think you have to come away from this game saying, hey, we out-rebounded the best rebounding team in the country, arguably, 39-33. They only give up 51 points a game. We scored 59, and we did all of that despite our best players, except for Landers Nolley, who had a fantastic game with 12 points on 4-4 shooting from the floor. Now, he did all of that came in the first half. He cooled off. Micah Adams-Woods had 19 points, 8 of 11 from the floor. The Bearcats, last year, the Cincinnati Bearcats lost by 22 to Houston, lost by 18, and then lost by 10, I believe, in the conference tournament. Now, this is a much better Houston team than last year. And the Bearcats just took them to a very competitive game outside of a 13-2 run to close out, to open up the second half. I do believe this Bearcats team is just fine. I believe they're on the right track. They have what it takes to compete. Now it's just a matter of getting over that hump. They played Houston tough with a lot of things that didn't. There's a lot of things that did not go their way. Micah Adams-Woods David DeJulius was off. Jeremiah Davenport was off. Viktor Lakhin was held in check in the first half. If I'm the Bearcats, I come away from that game saying, we're right there. If we only lost by 13 to that team and all the things we had go against us, come January 28th, the next time these two teams play in Houston, nationally televised on CBS, there's 4 games in between then. I think the Bearcats will be a much better team. I'm not saying they're going to go in and beat the number 1, 2, whatever. Excuse me. But I will say that there were some encouraging signs on Sunday. The fact that you were able to keep that game close when a lot of things weren't going your way, I think that's very, very, very encouraging. All right, much more on Sunday's game on tomorrow's show. Plus, of course, we've got some transfers rolling in. We've got some new additions to Scott Satterfield's staff coming in, so plenty more to get to later this week. Russ Heldman will join me for a live room. That's going to be on Thursday, not Wednesday, Thursday this week. Little change. 12:30 on Thursday. We'll have that. We got the Bearcats in East Carolina on the hardwood on Wednesday night. That'll be an interesting game. Bearcats need to bounce back. And we've got, of course, Friday, so lots to get to this week. NFL playoffs are on the horizon. We'll take a look at Bearcats in the playoffs. We've got several of them. Obviously, the Kelsey brothers. We've got Kobe Bryant and the Seahawks, so we'll get to that. Does Sauce Gardner win Defensive Rookie of the Year? I think he has a strong case. So we'll talk about all of that on our fun Friday show. Meanwhile, thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen today. For your second listen, check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Experts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Plus, hear from big-name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. For Locked On Bearcats, I'm Alex Frank. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. I'm on Twitter at Frankie_Natty and at Locked On Cats on Twitter. That's where you can follow the podcast. I'm on Instagram AlexFrank9_ or email at alex3frank@gmail.com. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. I'm Alex Frank for Locked On Bearcats. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.